Okay, so we're going to go back a few lines. We're holding in the class of Shaar Habitochon. So in the English, it would be chapter 3, part 13, Reasons Why the Wicked Prosper. So we're kind of off topic. We're mainly trying to discuss the idea of why a person has to put in their own participation. But we went off to explain that even sometimes they are, and why people, even though when people put in their own participation, not always do we see and we go into why is it that a person has to find difficulties in it, and we analyze the different questions. But we're also discussing over here, just going to that sometimes we don't see it exactly mathematically work out as we would like. We put in our participation, we put in our efforts, and we still feel like we're going up sometimes against the current or worse. So not always are the wicked punished or the righteous rewarded. So we explained in the first part about why isn't it always that we see that the righteous, someone who lives a life according to Torah mitzvahs, who says, so to say, ask me what you want me to do and I'll do it. And if everything's biyad Hashem, you say everything's bitachon, so I'm doing everything I should be doing, and nevertheless I'm finding challenges. So we explained the difficulties that sometimes the person has to go through in order to find, and there's tests and there's stages and there's different reasons. Now he's discussing the second question. The second question, again, these are not questions that Rabbeinu Bachaya says he hasn't. These are not, Rabbeinu Bachaya thought up the question. Everyone asked this question. This the questions asked in literature in the beginning. The Gemara talks about different personalities of the beginning of time that ask these questions. But we're in the middle of the questions. And here we're holding about the Toiva, why sometimes we find that the wicked prosper. And then we're going to go into finishing off the parak about the question of an important question, that if there has to be a shtadlus, if a person has to have participation, if a person has to have their own efforts that they put into their situation in life, how do you know what choices you should make, and not in specific choices so much as general life choices. Okay, but before we get to that, we're just going to finish off the question of why do we find that the wicked sometimes prosper. Avatovis Hashem al Rasha. Why do we find sometimes that the Rasha has things good? Sometimes it's just because a person, everyone has mitzvahs, everyone has good things that they've done, and for the good things that they've done, God pays. God, nothing goes unpunished and nothing goes unrewarded, and it's true, of course. But if someone does a good deed for sure, then you can't just disregard the good deed. So sometimes Hashem says, listen, I don't want this person to benefit in the bigger picture, i.e. the world to come. So this person is going to prosper in this world, and then later he won't have the schutim, he won't have the merits, because she's already been rewarded for them in this world. That's an idea. It's brought down many places where God rewards the wicked in this world, so he doesn't reward them in the world to come. Ka'amrei, and he quotes the verse that says in Devarim, that why does God pay in a positive way? Sign of someone who he hates. I mean, what's hateful? Hateful is an extreme expression, but hateful is a person who behaves in a hateful way. So later he could put this person to destroy this person, because the person has already lost his merits. We find even the most wicked people of all time, biblical times, Jew and Gentile, that they've had good things, and because of that they had reward. Nebuchadnezzar was rewarded for sticking up for God. Even Isabel, the wife of Achav, she danced and she was hospitable. So when she was punished, her hands and her feet did not get punished. So we find different rewards for different people. It says, "V'tirgumu by Rishonim," it's brought down in Onkelos, "U'mishalim lisan oihi," he pays to those who he hates. Zachvan de inun avdin kadmoyi, he pays them for things they've done initially, from the word kadmon. B'chayehen lo'ivdeim lo mi'acher of oivat tav lisanoi tavyin de inun avdin kadmoyi b'chayem misham lahoin. So he translated here, "U'misham l'soinav," he pays up those who he hates, meaning those who act wicked, begins zechuyis, because of the merits that they've done in their life, so they get paid for that. That's, again, this is a translation from the verse in Devarim, that they kind of exhausted all their merits in this world, and later they pay for it in the world to come. So we not, a person may say, well, I want to be also rewarded in this world. Why should I have to wait till the world to come? But we don't understand what the world to come is because we don't live there. But we're not there now. But they say patience. So it's a hard thing to request from someone when they're in a difficult situation. They say, well, what does it say? The story of Chanin ben Dosa. Chanin ben Dosa was very poor, very, very spiritual, holy person. He's compared to one of the Nesichim, one of the princes that Micha talks about, the 8 princes of life, and he's one of them. And he says he has a very difficult life financially. And his wife says to him, the famous story, you help everyone else, why can't you help us? So he prays and he gets a chair. He gets a foot of gold, a foot of a table full of gold, worth a lot of money, enough for him and his family to live comfortably for the rest of time. But she has a dream that night that her table in heaven is lacking one of the legs. And she inquires why. And he told her, well, you wanted a reward in this world, so we pulled off one of the legs of your table in the world to come. That's a metaphor, and we gave it to you in this world. And she tells her husband, no, give it back. And the famous Gemara says that Rav Chanin ben Dosa was such a great sage that even though it says that God takes and he doesn't give, Hashem gives, but he doesn't take back. But Rav Chanin ben Dosa, he prays and God takes back. But the point being is that we don't always know what's good for us. And so we see things from the moment, we see things very much from within our own space where we're at. And it makes sense sometimes to say, give me a foot of the table of the world to come, give me a little bit of relief. But when she saw the bigger picture, she said, take the foot back. The Efsher, so, and he continues, and he says, another reason why maybe the wicked prosper is al derech hapikodim biyadai ad sheyichanehu Hashem beven tzadik. Maybe this person, for whatever reason, this couple, for whatever reason, is meant to have a righteous child. And as in order for the child to be brought up in privilege, so the father already is being rewarded. So the child should have, as a pekodin, as a custodian, so to say, of the blessing on behalf of their child. Shehi ruya, that child is going to be worthy of the blessings. Like it says, Yachim v'tzadik yilbash. God, so to say, prepares, like the Metzudas David says, God prepares for the tzaddik that she should come into a good situation. And it says that, like it says, sometimes the wicked has the job to gather in, and so someone else is going to benefit from it. Okay, that's where we finished off last class before Chag. Okay, now he continues. He says, Efsher, another reason could be why someone prospers, even though their behavior doesn't warrant it, is not everything, hey Howard, not everything is understood at face value. A blessing now could really be a curse, right? Sometimes we look at our blessings, so we say, they say, be careful what you wish for. So the blessing itself could be a blessing. Seemingly on paper, it's a blessing, but it turns out to be a high price for you to pay to have this blessing. It says halachically, it's brought down that when we make the brachas of a toivu meitiv, or we make the bracha of baruch dayin emes, right? So one is a blessing that we make for God giving us toivu meitiv, who gave us good, and sometimes we make a blessing baruch dayin emes because things have not been good. So we say, blessed is the true God, whose dayin is a true judge. But the question is, what happens if something good now is really bad for later, and something bad now is really good for later? So the halacha is that we look at it now. Whatever the blessing looks for now, if it's bad news now, you make the bracha of dayin emes. And if it's good news now, even if it's going to develop into bad news, then you make a tovu meitiv. But the idea is that not everything is always the way it seems. So sometimes someone's blessing ends up being, sometimes you're better off if you never got your wealth in the first place. He says, he quotes Shlomo Melech, a person is given osher, he's given wealth to the for the ra'asa, it ends up being to their negative. It's not a positive for them. Another reason is God is patient, so therefore he offers blessings to a person, hoping this person he or she will return. That when you see the blessings, you should be a makir toiv. You eventually say, wow, why is God still being so kind to me? I'm so wicked. Maybe I shouldn't be so wicked, right? So sometimes God is overriding his initial reaction to things, or how he should react to things, because in the bigger picture, he wants the person to do tshuva. Be royal, and then when the person does tshuva, then they would be worthy of this reward. And he gives an example from Menashe, which is an amazing story, because Menashe is one of the kings that is given a very rough place in history. He was a murderer. He was a idol worshiper, and so. But at the end, he does tshuva, kind of a tshuva, not 100% tshuva. I'm not again here judging Menashe, and he gets back. And he's the king. He's the longest. The king of the house of David that sat on the throne. It says, sometimes the other reason would be because you have schus avos, means you yourself are a person that is a wicked person, but your parents committed. A lot of people are writing off their parents back there. They're writing off their parents' good deeds. That because they've done such great things in their lifetime, that they've been rewarded, that for generations to come, their family is going to be successful. Like God says through the prophet, obviously, to Yehu, which was the king that got rid of the house of Achav, the king of Israel, Ben Nimshi, B'nei Revim Yashvulach Cha Al Kisei Yisrael. You're going to have 4 generations on the throne because of what he did. Even though they were not good kings, and even though they weren't worthy of the blessings themselves, but there's a schus avos that also counts for something. V'amr says, "Mishalach betumei tzadik ashrei banav achrav," that a person who walks betumos, in a straight path of the tzaddik. So woe are the children, worthy are the children who are come after the tzaddik, that they benefit. So we have many times we have righteous parents, mothers and fathers, or both, that are very righteous, and they bring blessings not just for their own generation, but for the generations to come. And like it says, Nar Hayisi, like the famous verse, Nar Hayisi Gamzakanti later Isi Tzadik Nesa Vizarim Vakash Lechem. I haven't seen that from a tzaddik, a child asking for bread. Why? Because the children are blessed from the benefits of the parents. Again, these are not always the situation. Not always does a good parent have children that are going to be rewarded, and not only are children of good parents who are also good, the children are good, are going to have it as easy as the parents. Sometimes the children don't have what the parents had. The point being is, there's no guarantee. We don't know. It's an we don't know everything. We don't know. So to try to what we could walk away from this is we could think a whole day. It can make you crazy, because if you focus the whole time in the circle of why are things bad happening to me, what have I done wrong? Again, like I said in last class, that there's idea of an historis l'Hashem Elokeinu v'aniglo Islam. When a person could take a lesson, and they could understand where they could improve themselves. So there's no reason you say, well, why should I improve myself? Maybe my conclusion, even though I know what I'm doing is wrong, but maybe that's not why I'm being punished. Maybe that's not why things are difficult. Maybe there's other reasons why it's happening. So the Rambam says that a person who says mikra, that it just happened, is an achser, is a person he's cold-hearted. She's cold-hearted. So there's nothing wrong with trying to fine-tune your life by analyzing where you could improve. But that doesn't mean that that's the depth of the reason of the problem. It's not going to always be, well, I did improve, so why are things happening right away? It's not so clear. It means a person should always try to find where they could do things better, but it's not a guarantee that that's good. It's not everything so square, not everything so mathematical. 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4. But at the end of the day, we always have to try to, our reason of serving Hashem is not a give and take. Like I wrote Rebecca a few weeks ago, there's the 4 shomrim, there's the 4 people who are watchers for different things. And there's different laws for different watchers. And there's different relationships people have with Hashem. A lot of people sometimes will have a relationship, and sometimes in their life or their whole life is going to be about, what could I do for you so what you could do for me? What do you need me to do for you so my life should be easier? What do you need me to do for me to be able to be blessed? So that's a relation, that's an attitude that one can have. That's like a shomer sacher, or like a socher, right? You get paid, and the person gets his item watched, but everyone benefits. What's a shomer chinam? Shomer chinam says, I'm going to watch what you need me to watch, not because I'm getting anything out of it. My focus is not that what I get out of it. And the shoel who says, just give me. I want, and you gain nothing from lending me your things. But there's different kind of relationships different people have with Hashem. There's nothing wrong with having a relationship to try to say, let's make a deal. But that's in the end of the day, when if you analyze it, it's an interesting kind of way to live your life. That your whole life is that your whole relationship with Hashem is that you want to have an easy life here. You want to have the things you want here. But you know that God runs the world, so therefore you want to know what can I do for God, so God should give me what I need. It's not. I'm not going to use the word shallow because a lot of people go through that, and even if you don't want to admit it, we all do that. We all do, like, what is a segula? What do we do? We're trying to do things that are either going to beat the system or create the system, right? So everyone. We can't disregard difficulties and say, "Wow, why are you focusing on difficult? Difficulties are difficult, and you have to pay attention to them. It is difficult. It doesn't mean that's not difficult to have a conversation with someone and not appreciate their situation, that difficulty that they're in, by saying, well, if you were a more godly person, you wouldn't pay attention to your difficulties. That's wrong. You could judge yourself. You can't judge others. But that said, a person on the self-analyzation, it's a higher level if you could reach where you're not motivated in your service of Hashem based on trying to figure it out, because not always the math is not always it's not always going to be the conclusion. It could be a very frustrating relationship. It's frustrating because it's not always going to be exactly as you feel. It's not exactly, I give $1, I get back $1. It's not going to work like that. And so that's one reason why it's not the best strategy. And the second reason is on a MS level, on a truthful level, for a person to try to find moments and times and parts of the relationship that are not based on what you've done for me and what I do for you. Okay, so he continues. The Efshar, okay, we said that. The Efshar, another reason is Shehili Nisayon. Here is another idea. He's just bringing different ideas. And what is it? This idea is the person who's not really a tzaddik, the person who projects themselves as a tzaddik, but inwardly they're not. So God may sometimes bless the Rasha to say, listen, show everyone who you really are. Maybe you're going to think, well, if I don't really believe in the thing I'm saying. I'm not really a righteous person like I'm projecting. I'm really an evil person, a hateful person, a jealous person, a person that's really what's cooking inside me. I project myself as a righteous person. But then I look at the next person who's openly hateful and openly spiteful and openly jealous, and look how successful that person is. Maybe I should show my true colors. Maybe I'll be more successful. Why am I hiding who I am? So that's what the Rabbeinu Bachai says. Sometimes God wants that you should look at the Rasha and try to reveal who you really are. Right? The person says, if a person says, why can't I look at this evil guy or this evil person that's benefiting, so why don't I just show who I really are? So that's a good, and again, it's an extreme situation, but he's mentioning as a possibility of Efshar. The people who do things in hiding, they're only projecting positive. Hold on, I'm going to finish this. The people who are hiding the bad, when they see the wicked benefiting, they're going to do the opposite to what they're projecting, and they'll show their true colors. And they're going to try to copy and mimic the Rasha because they're really wicked people. So therefore, the God kind of draws out the hidden Rasha to reveal themselves. Yes, Aaron.
Okay. So I learned this, that if you always have a good attitude, then if you know you're bad at something, you say, or you go into a test and you say, I'm not going to do so well in it, then you don't do well. If you say you're going to do well, even if you have hard struggles in that subject, you usually do better than you would have otherwise. So my question is that you said you should project if you say you're a good person, but you're really not, and you project this goodness, maybe you should project what you really are, but then you'll never get to be good.
That's a very good point. There's That's a very good point. But I think that Rabbeinu Bachai is talking about not a person that's struggling with their evil, but a person who's really just projecting a personality that's not true. It means you have a lot of people that struggle. That means you're right. You're right. If a person has some things that no one's perfect. They came to the Alter Rebbe. Some people came to Alter Rebbe and said, look at your Hasidim. They're all I don't believe that they are the way they project. They daven long and they pretend like they're thinking Hasidus. I'm sure they also struggle with where everyone else struggles with the basic struggles of taivas, of pleasures that they want in life. And your Hasidim give off as if they're these righteous people. So the Alter Rebbe answered, he says, it's brought down in halacha that a person who pretends like they need a wheelchair or they're blind or whatever, like a person wants sympathy, so they pretend you're not going to leave this world until whatever you're pretending is going to happen. So the Alter Rebbe says, if in negative it happens, in positive also. So if you're going to pretend like you're a tzaddik, eventually you'll become a tzaddik. So that's what you're saying. That if you're going with the right attitude, then that's a good thing. But that's if you're struggling with it and you just don't have to project to the whole world and say, look, I need the whole world to know every single. But the Rambam says, it's brought down, that a person who thinks the whole world has to know everything you struggle with, that's an arrogant attitude. Not everyone has to know. If it means sometimes it's important because you encourage people who are feeling lost in their struggle, and you say, "Don't worry, I also struggle." So that's a positive. But if you're doing it just to show, because look, it's okay to struggle, and it's not just about it's okay to struggle, but you're proud of your struggle, so to say. You're proud of your shortcomings. That's also not a good thing. But over here, with the Rabbeinu Bachai is not talking about such a person who's struggling and trying to project wealth in order, like you said, to come in with the right attitude, so you could actually overcome this struggle. You're talking about a person who's comfortable with their negative. What they're projecting is nothing to do with who they really are. They're not struggling with their good and their bad. They're bad, but they just want to project that they're good. They're hiding their bad. So they're kind of the Rabbeinu Bachai says that kind of person gets lured out to who they really are. Maybe they'll feel that it's better to show who they really are than to show, or to say it in another in a more healthy way, is when you go through that whole conversation in your head. A person sometimes goes through the conversation part of it, not the actual part of it. Where you say, where you talk it out to yourself. You say, maybe, then you have to face those questions to yourself. Say, 1 second, do you want to live like that person? Do you want to live like the person who doesn't keep Shabbos, who doesn't do this, doesn't keep kosher, and is a member of the club? Everything's good for them. Is that what you really want to be? Sometimes you need to have that conversation with yourself. It means that when you identify the struggle, and you say, "No, 1 second. I know it's hard. I know I'm not perfect, but I'd rather be who I am, and try to be a good Jew than to throw it all out." So sometimes, a lot of times a person will look at someone who's going through what you think is an easier life. It doesn't mean it's true. What you think is a good life, what you think is your life, and you say, if I just be like that person, then you ask yourself, do you want to be like that person? Is that what you really want? Is that the kind of person you want to be? Is that the kind of life you want to live just because you want things to be easier for you? So sometimes it's not about bringing it out and acting on it, but bringing it out and understanding it. So kind of having that conversation with yourself gives you clarity and strength to continue in the difficulties of life, and hopefully things will get easier. I hope I answered your question. So he says like this, and therefore also when it becomes things more clear, again, like I said, this could be talking about the same person, that it refines the tzaddik within you. That you get when you're faced with questions. So you get clarity. Sometimes if you're not faced with an option, then until you have to make a real choice, you don't really understand yourself. Never mind if it's talking about two separate people. And we'll see. It's going to be publicized. The person who suffered is able to hold through it, and you see the tzaddik within the person. And even if the person is going to be embarrassed, and also you find you get schar for going through the difficulties. So a person gets, let's say you get shamed because of your religion, right? Look at you. If you look at you, because you have your beard and your payas, and because you keep Shabbos, your opportunities are less, right? And you stand strong. You don't give in to hamaligim, the people that shame you. So that's part of the reward in life. Me'es Hashem Yisrael, K'moshe that you get the reward from God. K'moshe died to me, Parshas Eliyahu and Isabel, like Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet, suffered the shaming from Isabel. Yirmiyahu also was shamed by the heads of his generation. He threw him in the prison. So we see again all these. Sometimes there's the success of others is a time for a person to within themselves or about themselves to override the situation. And even if there's everyone's laughing at you, look, the Frum Jew, look how hard it is for them in their life. Okay. And he continues in the commentary over here. He gives other examples of where these things, the idea of difficulties for the Rasha, for the tzaddik, for the righteous, and good blessings for the Rasha. He gives the famous story of Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva's being combed to death, and Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Zu Torah v'zu schora." Is this Torah? I mean, this is the reward. This is what happens. A person like Rabbi Kiva, who has the path that Rabbi Kiva had, the difficulties and the journey that Rabbi Kiva had. He found Torah at 40. He married at a difficult time. His wife sacrificed everything for her husband to become a Ben Torah. He becomes a person. He has 24,000 students. They die, and he builds Torah again. And his end is that Moshe Rabbeinu says that this person should be giving the Torah, not me. And then Moshe says, "What happens? What's his reward?" And he sees he's being tortured to death by the Romans. He says, "Zu Torah v'zu schora." We don't always understand. He also quotes the Rebbe says that this is what Moshe Rabbeinu says. When Moshe Rabbeinu says to God, he says, let me understand your ways. And God says, you can't. You can't understand my ways and live. What does it mean you can't understand my ways and live? It's not like if you understand my ways, you're going to die. Living in this world means we don't always understand something. Part of the experience of a person is the suffix. Even though now we're going to go to the next stage, suffix means the doubt. This part of life is I heard the Rebbe say very clearly in the Farbrengen in the early years, that a person who doesn't go through doubt in their life hasn't started to live. Part of living is the doubt, the suffix. And after the suffix comes the clarity. After the doubt comes the clarity. But you have to go through a stage where you don't know what's going to be, right? Emotion. There's a lot of times we have a doubt. So if you're in the stage of doubt in your life, it doesn't mean it comes when you're 10 years old, 20 years old, or 50 years old. Whatever that stage is that you're in your doubt, you have to know that doubt is temporary. From there is going to come clarity. But doubt is part of who a person is. A person has to go through sfeikus. And the suffix brings out, because like I said before, when a person has doubt, so the doubt sharpens the person's understanding of the analyzation of what the situation is, and then eventually the clarity comes. Doesn't mean that from the doubt itself comes the clarity, but there is going to be a stage a person goes through doubt. The Rebbe says the Alter Rebbe went through that, and there's all different kinds of doubts. The doubts are many doubts, but there's this idea of suffix that's in a person's life. Okay, now he says like this. Okay, so we're going back to the idea. We're just going to go a little further. We're going back to the idea of a person that has to do hishtadlus. A person has to do participation. So now the question comes in that we do live in a regular world, and we live in a world where we have different talents, right? Some people are better at other things. So if you're saying that hishtadlus, we're trying to bridge two ideas. One is that everything comes from God, and we have to do something. So it could be we have to just do anything, right? Just to do something, or do we have to do something specific? So he says that. So Rabbeinu Bachai says no. You have to analyze yourself, and that doesn't take away the doubt part of it. But the clarity has to be a person should be able to find within themselves their path, their general idea. Know what you're good at. If you're a musician, and say, well, who cares if I'm a musician? That shouldn't be my life because I could do anything because it's all about Habitochon, it's all about God's blessing. I'll become a farmer. It could be you should be a farmer, it could be you shouldn't be a farmer. If you have talents, follow your talents, follow your drive, and follow your desires. Meaning the Rebbe always said, a person should work what you like, a person should learn where you like, find the places that work for you, find the situations that work for you, find the people to hang around with that work for you. Because God put you in the physical world, and part of it is that the blessing comes. Yes, at the end of the day, the success is not based on just because you have a talent. But if God gave you a talent, He gave it to you for a reason. Use your talents to the best of your abilities, because maybe that's how you're supposed to perform in this world. So he said like this, because now it's become clear. The obligation al bnei adam for a person lisasik b'sibos to do hishtadlish, to do participation, right? You not just say, God, food is going to fall from heaven. It's not always like that. I mean, the Rebbe Marash says that now we live in a time where it's man, but doesn't mean the very fact that we're different and the very fact that we have different things about us, right? The person can't say, well, I'm going to become a teacher, even if I don't even have any, I have no communication skills or no teaching skills. That you can't say, well, it's going to happen. It could be, it's going to happen. Those are extreme cases, but follow the talent, follow the blessing, so to say. So therefore he says, Nisbarat, and now we're going to explain. You can't do anything. What's the actual translation of the words? It's not meant for every person. Love that the person should view, so to say. That their job doesn't make a difference what it is. I could become a cook, and I could become a musician. I could become a doctor, become a lawyer. I could do whatever I want because it doesn't make a difference. All God's blessing. There's many different things that a person could do, right? There's many occupations you could do. Mihem kalas, there's different, some are easier, and they don't demand a lot of effort, a lot of work. You go in the Rebbeinu B'chai says to be a salesperson is easier than to be a builder. Bechanut is to own a store. It doesn't take that much physical labor. It's not about judging you do more, you do less. It's just that you understand yourself and understand what you're good at and understand what you could do better. The Rebbe used to ask a person, what do you want to do? Because what's the difference what you want to do? Because if you want to do something that's part of who you are, you have a pull to that thing. Maybe that's where you're going to be most successful. If you're a person who is a handy person, you're a person who could do things. You're a watchmaker, a watch fixer, right? If you're good at sewing, you could be a tailor. Or other kinds of ksiva, you could be a writer. You have a good penmanship, or you have a good writing skills. If you could be a contractor, you could be a person who works to the land. There's different kind of things that you can do. Some things are much harder to do. For instance, if you're going to have to be a tanner, that's a hard job. If you're going to be a person trying to make iron things, or nechoshes, or copper, other different difficult works, with terifas akesef, ayidei, aiferes, or refining the silver, or to be a schlepper, guy who's carrying, a guy a person who's a delivery person, or at sifas amasais, if you're a person who's a traveling, trucker. Doesn't make a difference what it is. There's different jobs, different things are difficult, less difficult. So there's different things. So a person can say, what's the difference what I do? If I just have to do something and everything comes from God, so whatever it is I do, I'll do, and the blessing should come. So Rebbeinu B'chai says that's not the derech. That shouldn't be the way. This doesn't just apply to occupations. You have to apply this also in relationships, right? If you're trying to find the shidduch, you can't just say, well, I'm going to. It doesn't make a difference who I date. She or he's going to be at the other side of the table of the date. You try to find someone that on paper has to make sense. Also, he says Shekol Adam Shuz Chazek Begufay. He says if a person's a physically strong person, but doesn't have major other talents, their strength is in their physical strength. Makes sense that person should be involved in things that need strength. If that's where they're shining, so that's where they should apply themselves. Let's say a person's physically weak. Can't say, well, I'm going to start carrying 100 pounds of stuff. Because if you're not physically a strong person, that's not what you should be doing. He's giving extreme, but that's to give us to understand that. He's like, and that person has a good hafchana, is good in their mind, their math, so they become an accountant. Right? When you come to the army, they don't just say, well, we're going to take this little scrawny kid and throw him into me. Whatever they're going to say, oh, and he's good at computers, she's good at whatever. They find the job that's matim. You should stay away from things that don't make sense for you. It's something that's easier for you to do. You could put yourself into it. So he's saying is that a person, when there comes to shtadlus, so what we're trying to bring to over here is that the bracha. See, when a person may think that when you says the person has to do participation, he or she, and everything comes from blessing, and therefore I'm just going to do anything, and the blessing can come, is also a kind of yish, as a kind of surrender. It's a kind of basically, you're really disconnecting from the world. You're saying whatever, okay, fine, I'm going to do it because I have to do something. But if you don't have a passion for it, you don't have a drive for it, you don't have a talent for it, so you're basically saying that the world doesn't really exist. The world exists, means it exists in the way God created the world. He created it with its different things. And part of the creation was that there's different things in the world and different things that have to get done. Different people have to do different parts. Different people have opportunities to do different parts. God blessed you with something. So that means that don't be scared. Don't be scared with your blessing. If God blessed you for something, that means his intention was, for whatever reason, not that we understand, that your job in this world is to use those talents to bring godliness and to reveal godliness in your way to this world. So don't be afraid of what you've been blessed with, and embrace it. And because by thinking that I'm not going to identify the positive parts about myself is a disconnect. It's a kind of disbelief. You don't really believe. If you really believed that God believes in you, so you would believe that he understands that you're going to be good at this. God believes in you because he gave you this talent. So you should believe in yourself and apply that talent to what you're going to do in your life. Because a person who doesn't want to embrace what's their talents means that you're not really, you're lacking. It's an expression, maybe not consciously, of a lack of faith. Because if you really had faith, you'd believe that if God gave you this talent, he gave it to you for a reason. He believes in you. And where the Habitochon comes in is that when you see the talent, and sometimes there's challenges to actualize and make a parnasa or actualize the talent. So again, so when a person says, when you write your resume for a shidduch, be honest, and know what your strengths are, know your weaknesses, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of it, because if God wanted you to be a singer, he would have blessed you with a good voice. The very fact that you don't have a good voice or a questionably good voice is obviously that's not meant for you. That's not your path. So, but have faith in God that that's not your path. That's the point here. So he says, he gives in the commentary, gives all kind of examples, but that's the point. The point is, he quotes the Hayom Yom of the 25th of Nisan. That says, how did he? I'm going to read the Hayom Yom. The Yom Yom says that the avod of a person is like this. I'm going to read the Hebrew. A person's service in this world, each person according to their character and according to their uniqueness, what they have special about them, what's good, what talents they have. He gives an example. If you have the talent to mine diamonds, a little or to find precious stones, and you become a baker. So everyone, we need bakers. But if you have a talent to do something in diamonds, the Rebbe says in the Hayom Yom, for you, it's not a statement on a baker. But if you have a talent to do something else and you're downgrading what you should be doing, for you it's a sin. Because if God gave you the talent to know how to mine diamonds, so mine diamonds and leave the baking to the gods who bless the people to be a baker. And that's an idea that's in general. That's the idea what the Rabbeinu Bachai is saying over here. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in the faith God has in you, and in faith in the talents that he's given you. It's because you have something special about you, and God wants you to find that. So the suffix is going to be sometimes how you find it. Sometimes it's not easy to find your talent, and sometimes it's not easy to find what you're good at. And a person is always, and you also may make a mistake. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake, and so you have to be cautious in being a quitter. But there's nothing wrong with a good. You made a mistake. I thought I was good at this. I'm not. So there's also times when you have to know when to call it a day. So all those, that balance is Rabbeinu Bachai says that's part of the suffix, that's part of what a person's supposed to be going through, and that's part of the journey of bitachon, is the bitachon that it's there, you have something, everyone has something, and you just have to find it. Sometimes you can find it yourself, sometimes others help you find it. It's there for you, you can find it, you can do it, you're meant to do it, and have faith that you can do it, and have faith that God is going to make that if you do it, it's going to be done eventually in a successful way. And he continued, I'm just going to go a little further. He says, "V'yesh l'chol adam lihitus l'malachim misuyamas or l'mischar misuyam bil'adei zulasai." A person has to find the jobs that work, that not something else, and not that someone else can do it. God, he says, God is kind of put into your tchuna, into your character, a certain love for a certain thing. You have, it's a blessing. Not everyone's blessed with that, and it's not clear the reasons why. But if you're such a person who's blessed to really know what you're good at, and you really have a passion in it, and sometimes you're samech bechelka, you're means it doesn't mean maybe you're not going to be the inventor or the millionaire or the this or the most popular person, but everyone has something, and it's nothing wrong, nothing to be ashamed about, to live your passion and to live what excites you, and to find and identify that, and make that part of your service of Hashem. And I think that when a person, just to finish off, and he goes on to that one could learn this from animals, that animals have a very strong, clear instinct of what they should be doing in life, right? The lion knows what he's supposed to do or she's supposed to do, and the lioness and the snake knows what it's supposed to do, and the ant knows what everyone knows what they're doing. The animal has a clear instinct of what it's supposed to be doing, and it doesn't. We have, because we have choices, we're kind of sometimes get clouded in what we should be doing. And of course, there's the Torah mitzvahs. That's for everyone. But within the Torah mitzvahs, like we say, avuch, your father, the Gemara says this idea, avuch b'mahu zaret fei. What was your father's passion of mitzvah? Because each person identifies where they really express themselves, like this week's parsha, the 7 parts of the menorah. Are you a chesed menorah? Are you part of the first candle, the second candle, the 7th candle? There's different parts of the menorah, different characters, different things that you're good at. And I believe that when a person starts to become comfortable with who they are, so other things that are a byproduct of that fall into place easier, not for sure, but easier. Whether it is in relationships, whether it is with other people, whether it's in your self-confidence, because everything about who you are is projected, and being comfortable with yourself, satisfied, being ragua, being calm, which is what bitachon is ragua, is all these things help in a person in all their journeys in life, in all the things, the relationships they're trying to build. When you're comfortable, you're happy, when you're satisfied, when you're comfortable with the blessings, you identify with who you are, you're much more comfortable knowing who you should be with, and and what your job is in this world. You go out of the suffix, like I said, and you start to go into clarity in the path of moving forward. So I want to bless everyone. Taka it should be, we should find our path, and we should embrace it, and with it should come all the other components that is needed for us to fulfill our mission in life. Laila Tov and good Shabbos. Take care.
Is there time for questions or no?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I have 2 questions about some things that you said earlier in the beginning.
Sure.
You sort of touched on this, but like if a person is like davening, like wants a certain bracha that they don't have, like getting married, having kids, I don't know, having parnasa, whatever. I think I learned somewhere that in order for Hashem to give the person that thing that they really, really want, the person it's like using up the person's suyos in this world that they would have taken with them to the next world. So is that something that a person needs to be concerned about, or needs to ask Hashem, like, I want this as a matnas chinam without using my suyos in this world?
You mean like the story of Rabbi Hanina Mendoza's wife, who asked for the wealth, and they showed her that the piece of gold is coming from somewhere, and if it's here, it's not.
Yeah, but I also read in like one of the Living Amuna books that a person should ask for whatever the bracha is that they need from the Hashem's Otzer Matnas Chinam, like meaning that it shouldn't come from the person's like bank of zchuyos, but Hashem should give it to us like from a place of like from his own free gifts kind of thing.
Well, that's obviously if you don't have to dig into your resources, if you don't have to go into your bank account, and you get so you know, and not your physical bank account, but your zchuyot bank account, and that's what that I mean. That's what they're saying. If you're already asking, you're asking that Hashem Yehi Ratzon. That's what we say in Tefillah. Tefillah is Yehi Ratzon. Let it be a new will. It means I'll create a new will. It means if I was given limited blessings, I'm asking God to rewrite, you know, rip up the old paper and write a new one in a positive way. So you don't want to be menakim is zchuyos. If you don't want to, of course, no one wants to take away from the zchusim that they have, because you want to be able to have your zchusim. But not to ask, to say, well, I'm not going to ask for anything because I don't want to be menakim for my zchusim. That's also that's like a person who doesn't want to spend anything, and you know, I'm not going to spend anything because my bank account's going to be less. If you, I think the best way to analyze these situations is to understand what's the best way for me to be an Oved Hashem, a servant of God. How am I going to serve God best? If you say to yourself like this, for me to serve God best, things need to be healthy in my life. I need to be, it means I need to be healthy for me to serve Hashem physically. I need to have parnasa to serve Hashem. I would serve Hashem so much better had I had a family and children. So then, that means if the drive is how could I be the best Jew that I have to be, the best Oved Hashem that I have to be? So then so there's nothing wrong with saying to ask Hashem, however it happens. If it happens that he gives it from the Matnas Chinam, that's also good. But it's not like, well, if I don't get it from the Matnas Chinam, I'm not going to ask for it, because then if a person says, well, if I can't get shoes free, I'm going to walk barefoot and, you know, stumble through life because I can't walk properly. I don't have shoes because I don't want to take anything. No, you have to, it's not about the reward. Focus on the job. And the job is to be a servant of God. How could I be the best servant of God? And the best servant of God, if it means that I need to be married, and of course a person has to be married, and I have children, and I have a healthy home, and I'm physically healthy, and I'm materially healthy, and I'm emotionally healthy. So that's my focus. My focus is how can I be the best servant of God? Not about what's waiting for me in the world to come and what chutzim I have and what this. What is the best way for me to serve Hashem? If that's your guiding compass, I think that's a good strategy.
That makes a lot of sense. And just one other question. So I know some people who daven before they start saying Tehillim or Tikkun Klali or any kind of tefillah, they say something, a Hareini, where they ask that their tefillos be bound to the tefillos of like some like really important people who came before them, or to their avos, you know, to their ancestors, or like specific tzaddikim or whatever. Like, is that necessary, or like don't our tefillos go where they're supposed to go even without being attached to the tefillos of like tzaddikim?
I don't know if everyone has this in their back of their Tillim, but when we say Tillim in Chabad, in the back of the Tillim is the Yehi Ratzon. We say after each of the books of Tehillim, and in the Yehi Ratzon it says, part of the verbiage, the languages over there at the bracha, is we say clearly, we say Yehi Ratzon is, we say that like this, we say B'schus mizmaris, b'schus b'suka, b'schus tevosa, b'schus meisecha, all the different words, letters, and names of God, holy names and pure gods that I said. This is what we add. Shetehei nechsheves lanu. You should consider it. Amiris mizmurai tehillim elu, as when we say the chapters of Tehillim, ki'ilu amram David melech Yisrael, as if David himself said it. So we have that idea of saying, it means there's people. I mean, for instance, to give an example, if a person comes in and says, "Listen, I may not be best at my words. I may not be able to formulate an idea as clear as someone else, but I really need it, and I really would love if just, you know, don't judge me because I'm not talented in finding the right way of saying something, and because maybe my prayers come off arrogant, or my prayers come off desperate, or my prayers come off so and so, but at my heart, I'm trying to say it like David said it. So listen to it as if you're hearing it from David. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the tefillah. The tefillah is because we have our limitations. We're saying to God that don't listen to the words, but so to say, just the way I'm saying it. Maybe I'm not saying it right, but it doesn't mean that I mean it less. So it's not like we're trying to fake it and we're trying to ride on someone else's tefillahs, but we're saying that I may not be able to say it with this right kavanah. I can't concentrate as good. I can't, but it doesn't mean I mean it less. Fundamentally, I mean it the best. I'm limited in my ability to perform in my prayer. So don't hold that against me. All right,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess that's just a different way of looking at it. Because the way it was explained to me by one of we have that I think in the Nusach Ashkenaz also in the back of the Tehillim, but the way it was explained to me, it was like the tefillos of the tzaddikim sort of like go like farther and higher and whatever. So we're asking for our tefillos to be like binded together with theirs to go up to wherever their tefillos are going. That's how it was explained.
But it's that idea. It means it's not just it's that's accurate. It means to say is that I mean I'm trying to pray. Yes, my words are heavier because I'm not as pure. I haven't sacrificed as much, and so but I don't mean it less. Means it's not that it's not you coming in and saying I don't mean what I'm saying, but just pretend like Avram saying it. You have to put him. There has to be shtadlus in the tefillah as well. There has to be participation. It's like the story of the Baal Shem Tov, who no one could break the decree. It was only the child who sang like a chicken, because he didn't have the words, but he had the heart. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Laila Tov, Shavua Tov. We'll see you next week. Take care.